At Sunday dinner, your daughter mentions a new app. Your nephew answers with a joke everyone seems to understand, and the table erupts while you hold your fork above a cooling plate. You glance from one smiling face to another, waiting for a doorway into the conversation that never appears. This time, you don't pretend to laugh. People may call that stubbornness, bad manners, or proof that you've become one of those older adults who refuses to keep up. Your family may decide you're grumpy, oversensitive, or secretly judging a culture you no longer understand. But you haven't stopped understanding people. The world they live through has stopped feeling readable to you. You grew up in a world of paper maps folded into glove boxes, telephone numbers remembered by heart, television schedules printed in newspapers, and front doors that friends knocked on without first sending a message. Change arrived, but it usually arrived slowly enough to learn together. When you didn't know something, there was no search bar waiting in your pocket and no tutorial replaying the difficult part. You asked a person, found a book, made a mistake in public, or simply worked it out, because no adult was arriving with step-by-step instructions or checking whether you felt confident. That taught you independence, but it also taught you that confusion should be hidden. Not knowing felt like weakness, and needing someone to explain the obvious carried a small sting of shame. So you learned to keep your face still, nod once, and study the room before speaking. Your hands stayed busy with a cup, a plate, or a set of keys while your mind raced to catch up. Even when you felt completely lost, your voice came out flat and certain, "I'm fine." That old habit follows you into the modern world. Just download the app sounds like simple advice, but underneath it often means the entrance has moved, the instructions are somewhere else, and you're expected to find them alone before you're allowed to join in. When you hesitate, the problem is treated as your attitude rather than the missing bridge. Then you hear, "We put everything in the group chat." What that really tells you is that the conversation has been happening in a room you rarely enter. Decisions were made before you knew there was a choice, and your absence became convenient enough that nobody thought to check. And it's not that deep can mean. Don't ask us to slow down and translate. You start hearing the distance beneath ordinary words. After enough missed references, changed passwords, disappearing platforms, and conversations built around shows, politics, slang, or technology you don't follow, each moment stops feeling separate. Friends you once phoned now make plans in chats you rarely open, and months pass without a clear argument or goodbye. It begins to look like evidence that the culture moved on without you. Once that belief settles in, every awkward moment confirms it. A forgotten reply becomes rejection, a new menu becomes humiliation, and a younger person's impatience becomes proof that curiosity is no longer safe. Here's the uncomfortable part. You may be helping the distance grow. You protect your dignity by acting uninterested before anyone can see that you're confused. You call the new thing pointless, childish, invasive, or ridiculous because rejection feels safer than admitting you don't yet know how it works. The criticism gives you control over a moment that otherwise makes you feel powerless. You leave the family gathering early, ignore the video call, answer the group message 3 days later, or sit through dinner without asking what everyone is talking about. You stop suggesting plans because organizing them now seems to require platforms you dislike. Then you tell yourself nobody includes you anymore. The world really has changed quickly, and younger people can be impatient, careless, or smug about what they assume everyone knows. Some doors were moved without asking you, but each time you withdraw without explaining why, you also teach people that you'd rather be left alone than invited again, and they eventually obey. So are you being pushed out, or stepping back before anyone can watch you struggle? Probably both. Under the resentment is often relief. Relief that you no longer have to chase every update, risk looking slow, or sit in another room where everyone speaks as though the new world came with instructions you somehow misplaced. Relief sounds like, "I'm too old for that," said before anyone can offer help. It looks like deleting the invitation, choosing the familiar shop, avoiding the reunion, and keeping the TV on while the phone stays silent. For a while, the smaller world feels calmer. Then calm becomes routine. Routine becomes isolation, and isolation makes the next unfamiliar room feel even harder to enter. You haven't stopped caring about the people inside those rooms. You can love younger family members without understanding every reference, and you can question technology without rejecting every bridge it offers. But connection costs something too: the humility to ask, the patience to learn badly at first, and the courage to stay present when your confidence wants to leave. The world changed the lock, but you still have to decide whether to ask for the new key. Disconnection isn't proof that you no longer belong. It's what happens when belonging goes unpracticed. Back at Sunday dinner, your fork is still above the plate, the phones are still glowing, and the laughter has faded. But instead of smiling as though you understood, you place the fork down and ask your nephew to explain the joke from the beginning. For a second, the table is quiet. He has to decide whether to roll his eyes or make room for you. And you have to remain in the chair long enough to hear the answer without turning your embarrassment into anger. When the modern world feels unfamiliar, will you keep proving it has no place for you, or risk asking it to let you back in?